Hi again! In the past two lectures you have gained insight into describing the content of signals in the form of complex exponentials, or cosine and sines if you like. Thanks to the discrete time Fourier transform and discrete Fourier transform, we can now determine which frequencies occur in a signal and what their amplitudes and phases are. This week we will use the DTFT and the DFT to study LTI systems. As you know by now, an LTI system is fully characterized by its impulse response, because the output can be computed as the convolution of the input signal with the impulse response h of n. We have already seen that a convolution changes the content of a signal. After all, the output is a different signal than the input. So obviously the Fourier transform of the output will also be different from the Fourier transform of the input signal. How do these two relate to each other? In this lecture, the central topic is how to take advantage of the DTFT and the DFT to calculate convolutions. This will lead to the equation of the week shown here. With regard to this equation, we have the following learning objectives. First, the concept and definition of the frequency response or transfer function of an LTI system. Second, the calculation of the frequency response and the associated spectra. Third, using the frequency response to calculate convolutions. And fourth, the notion of low pass, band pass and high pass filter. And finally, the use of the frequency response for the basic design of impulse responses of FIR filters. When we studied LTI systems in lecture 2 and 3, we introduced the impulse response Hn. As the word says, h of n is the response of the system to a unit impulse input signal. It was useful to introduce the idea of impulse response because any input signal can be thought of as the sum of scaled and delayed unit impulses. And according to the superposition principle, the output signal is then the sum of the properly scaled and delayed impulse responses. Now, in the past 2 weeks you have learned to also think of discrete time signals as the sum of discrete time complex exponentials, with each exponential scaled and delayed depending on its frequency. So it is only natural to ask, what is the response of an LTI system, not to a unit impulse, but to a single complex exponential, such as the signal x of n shown here. Let us consider the example of a simple LTI system with the impulse response h0 is 1 and h1 is minus 1. This short derivation shows that the output signal is equal to the input signal multiplied by a term that we readily recognize as the DTFT of the impulse response h of n. The interpretation of this result is important. It says that if we have an input signal xn of a certain frequency, amplitude and phase, then the output signal y of n will have the same frequency but a modified amplitude and phase. And the amount of change in the amplitude and phase depends on the frequency of the complex exponential. For example, if the input signal has a frequency of 0, in other words it is a constant signal, we substitute omega is 0 into the expression and we see that the output signal becomes 0 for all n. And if the input signal has a frequency of pi over 4, then the multiplication factor becomes 1 minus e to the power minus j pi over 4, which is approximately 0.29 plus 0.71 j. The magnitude of this term is approximately 0.76, which indicates that the output amplitude will become smaller for an input signal with frequency pi over 4. And the phase is 0.375 pi, which corresponds to the left shift of the input signal over a distance of 1.5 times the sampling distance. The visualization of these results is a bit complicated as the input signal is a complex exponential. But if, for simplicity, we only take the real part, in other words the cosine term, then the illustration as shown here is obtained. Notice the change in amplitude and the left shift of the discrete time cosine. What we just now saw for this particular FIR filter applies to any FIR filter. In other words, for any LTI system with impulse response h of n, the output associated with a complex exponential input signal is given by this expression. which tells us that the change in amplitude and phase for a given frequency of the input signal is determined by the DTFT of the impulse response at that frequency. The DTFT of h of n is known as the frequency response or transfer function h of e to the power j omega. As the term says, it shows how the system responds to an input signal with a certain frequency. Here is the full frequency response of the LTI filter we saw earlier. It shows that for frequencies around omega is 0, that is, low frequencies, the amplitudes are attenuated because the magnitude of the frequency response is small. For higher frequencies, the amplitudes are amplified. Look closely at the frequency response at omega is pi over 4 as in the earlier example. You clearly see a magnitude of the frequency response of about 0.76 and a phase of 1.70 radials or 0.375 pi. Because of linearity of the system, it seems only natural that if this input-output relation holds for a single exponential, it should also hold for a signal that consists of a sum of complex exponentials. And we know how to write a signal as a sum of complex exponentials, namely through the use of the DTFT transform. So I hope it will not come as a surprise to you that the magnitude and phase of each frequency component in the input signal, that is each DTFT coefficient, will be multiplied by the value of the frequency response at each frequency. Let me say that again in normal language. The DTFT of the output signal is the product of the DTFT of the input signal and the DTFT of the system's impulse response, that is, its frequency response. Or even more simply, we can calculate a time domain convolution in the frequency domain as a product of DTFTs, and that is the equation of the week. If we put everything together in this course, from linear systems to impulse responses, from Fourier series to DTFTs of signals, and now the frequency response, then this one equation, the convolution theorem, sums it all up. I know some mathematicians who show their expertise by having the infinity symbol as a tattoo. If you're well versed in signal processing, the convolution theorem is probably a worthy alternative. Back to the point. Here is the definition of the frequency response of an LTI system. Like any DTFT, it is periodic over 2 pi, and because the impulse response has only real values, the frequency response has conjugate symmetry. Here's another example for an LTI system that averages over 2 samples. We take the impulse response, perform the DTFT, and plot the magnitude and phase of the frequency response. If we compare this frequency response with the earlier filter, we see that the one on the left attenuates high frequencies relative to low frequencies. For that reason, we call this a low-pass filter. The one on the right side does the opposite and is therefore called a high-pass filter. If we concatenate these two filters, the overall impulse response is the convolution of the two individual impulse responses, as we have seen in lecture 3. Giving the overall impulse response of 1, 0, minus 1. Its frequency response is shown here, which can be calculated either as the DTFT of the impulse response 1, 0, minus 1, or as the product of the frequency responses of the two concatenated filters. The resulting filter that you're looking at is called a bandpass filter, because now both low and high frequencies are attenuated relative to mid-frequencies. As an example, let us carry out the convolution of the impulse response 1, 0, minus 1 with the simple input signal x of n shown here. We have two alternative choices. First, let us do the good old time domain convolution, with this as a result. Second, we calculate the discrete time Fourier transforms of xn and the impulse response hn, multiply the two, and finally perform the inverse DTFT. The last step is a bit complicated because it requires the evaluation of the integrals in the Fourier synthesis equation. But as an alternative, you can also compare the result of the convolution theorem with the DTFT of y of n calculated by the time domain convolution. I assume that you recognize that these two results are indeed the same. The frequency response is a powerful means to design LTI filters for a particular purpose. For instance, consider this signal, which is the combination of two cosine signals and some other signal, let us say a biomedical measurement, in superposition. Suppose you would want to get rid of the two cosine components. What should the frequency response of the filter be? Well, for the magnitude of the frequency response, the answer is, I hope, clear. Taking this frequency response, the product of x of e to the power j omega and h e to the power j omega will greatly attenuate the two cosines components, giving us an output signal that is, more or less, just the biomedical signal. In the last lecture we will see more of how to design LTI filter responses making use of the frequency response. Until now we have used DTFTs. In practice, of course, we use the DFT because we have signals of finite length and we need a sampled frequency axis. Fortunately, the convolution theorem also applies to the DFT. In other words, convolution in the discrete time domain is identical to taking the product of the DFTs of the finite length input signal and the impulse response of the LTI filter. Here is an example of the LTI filter we saw earlier with the impulse response 1 minus 1. Let us consider the input signal x of n that has finite length of 16 input values. Since we need to take the product of DFTs, both DFTs must have the same length, in this case 16. So the impulse response needs to be supplemented with 14 zeros. Here are the DFTs of x of n and h of n, their product and the inverse DFT. If you do the convolution of the impulse response yourself with these 16 samples, you will obtain the same result. Well, almost the same result, because it depends what you took as a value for x minus 1. This value you must choose if you do the convolution directly in the discrete time domain. But we did not have to pick that value when we applied the DFT-based convolution theorem. This issue of boundary values will be discussed in more detail in the last lecture. With that, only the two exercises of the week are left. Both deal with the convolution theorem, one using the DTFT and the other one the DFT. First, given this input-output relation, calculate the frequency response h of e to the power j omega and plot its magnitude and phase. Second, you're given this input-output relation and a finite length input signal of 8 samples. Determine the missing values of the DFT of the output signal y of n in this table. I have to admit that these theory exercises are a bit forced and oversimplified. For that reason, the Python exercises that come with this and the following lecture show much better the power of the DFT and the convolution theorem on realistic signals. Well, that's it. There's only one more essentials to go. I hope to see you there for the wrap-up of this course. Bye bye!